Tonight, President Obama delivered his State of the Union address to a packed chamber of Congress and millions of television viewers. The president said better politics doesn't mean we have to agree on everything. Washington Bureau Chief Jacqueline Policastro highlights some of the biggest moments of the speech.
Tonight, President Obama showed that he is energized and optimistic about the future of our nation. He talked about the power of change and progress in his final State of the Union address.
The President of the United States.
Equal pay for equal work, paid leave, raising the minimum wage. All these things still matter to hardworking families. The United States of America, right now, has the strongest, most durable economy in the world. No hardworking student should be stuck in the red. For the loved ones we've all lost, for the families that we can still save, let's make America the country that cures cancer once and for all. What do you think, John? The United States of America is the most powerful nation on earth. Period. Period.
One of the biggest takeaways from tonight's speech is that the president believes the choices we make now truly will have an impact on our future. Reporting on Capitol Hill, I'm Jacqueline Policastro.
Following the president's speech, South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley offered the GOP rebuttal to the President Obama's address.
Unfortunately, the president's record has often fallen far short of his soaring words. As he enters his final year in office, many Americans are still feeling the squeeze of an economy too weak to raise income levels. We're feeling a crushing national debt, a health care plan that has made insurance less affordable and doctors less available, and chaotic unrest in many of our cities.
Picking up our local coverage of the State of the Union address is our Aaron Murray. And Aaron, we were there for watch parties, or were there outside, or people outside of their homes getting together to see the State of the Union tonight?
Mallory, the answer is no. This was not a State of the Union that saw many watch parties, and we reached out to both Democrat and Republican groups, and they both agreed this was one that if people were watching, they were watching at home. Now, when we talked to those groups, they were telling us with it being an election year, there are many other events they're planning, so the State of the Union didn't really make the cut with the events, like a watch party or something like that. As we know, though, over the past few years, the State of the Union has seen a decline in viewership. But with that being said, we still went out just before the State of the Union began and spoke to people about President Obama coming to Omaha tomorrow.
I know a lot of people are happy about it. To me, it doesn't make any difference.
Okay, so I don't really like Obama. I really liked about him. I don't really watch the news that much. I don't really pay attention to it.
Now, many people that we spoke to tonight that were out while the State of the Union was going on, they were out watching things like the Creighton game and the Nebraska game. But again, with that being said, one cool thing this year with the State of the Union address is that social media was brought into it a lot more. One of the things I want to show you right here is Twitter. All day, the State of the Union was trending #1 topic. Then also the White House had a new Snapchat account that Mallory, took pictures from behind the scene and posted during the State of the Union. And then finally also YouTube, they had a live stream all day. So we're really seeing social media becoming a big part of these major events that people are watching.
It certainly has been trending #1 all day long. Thank you. That's Aaron Murray reporting live tonight.